correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure all of us do this probably weekly, if not daily. If you're like me and you forgot to pull something out for dinner, well, tonight I was planning on having roast beef. Well, as you can see, it's a little bit frozen. So here's a really good trick. Just make sure you put them into a Ziploc bag, seal them nice and tight, then fill your sink with cold water. And warm water will cook it. You don't want to do that. Cold water will work just as well. Leave it in here for about an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, or as long as you really want to get them nice and thawed out. It won't be completely thawed to the center, but that's okay, because I'm going to put these into a slow cooker. So once your roast has thawed, this has now been in the water for about 2 hours. Like I said, it is not all the way thawed right to the center, but that's okay, because it is going to go in our friend here, the slow cooker, for about 3 to 4 hours on high, and that should cook it right through. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a screaming hot pan with a little bit of oil to give it a sear. Searing it just gives it an extra layer of flavor, in my opinion. You're going to want to add all your spices and everything to that pan. The goal is not to cook this, it's just to put a nice sear on the outside of the meat. While your roast is searing in the pan behind me, what you're going to do is you're going to go grab some of your onion broth soup base, I guess. And I like to make a cup of it. I use a half a package of this and a cup of warm water and make a broth. You do need some liquid inside your slow cooker, or everything dries out and burns. It's not the greatest. So I like to use this, because this will actually make a really good gravy in the end as well. Now that your roast is all nice and seared up and got a little bit of spices on it, you want to take your your onion broth, and add it to the pan where you just did all that frying in. We're basically deglazing that pan, getting all that flavor from the pan, all the spices that you used to crust onto this roast, and you're going to get all that flavor. Now all you want to do is grab the roast, put it right in the center of that crock pot. That can go to the side. Take your onion soup base, go ahead and dump that right over top. Make sure you get all the good little bits out. Then you're going to go ahead and put your lid on, set your slow cooker to high for about 4 hours or low for 8. We're going to come back and we're going to have the roast will be done, and we'll make a gravy out of everything that's in the bottom of this. I also had a little bit of extra stew meat that was sitting in the bottom of my freezer that started to go a little bit freezer burn. So this is a really good way to use up some old stew meat that isn't all that great anymore. I did the same thing with it. I fried it, pan fried it, and as you can see, it is definitely not cooked through, but just gave it a good sear with a bunch of extra spices. And you can see the roast in the center. The stew meat should be nice and tender, especially after 4 hours of high. And you can see the liquid in the bottom there. You can add a little bit of extra spices if you want. If you like garlic, I'd add some garlic, minced garlic at this point. Or if you like raw onions, you can add raw onions. You can do a lot of things at this point. So this has been on now for about 2 hours on high. And as you can see, we got a lot more moisture in here. Everything is cooking down quite nicely. This is a good thing to have all this moisture, because we're going to turn all that goodness into gravy once everything's ready and cooked. You can't have a roast beef dinner without mashed potatoes. So first thing you want to do is peel up your purple potatoes. Now that coloration, don't mind that. These are purple potatoes, so there is a little bit of that color still in the potato. Next, you want to cube up your potatoes into smaller chunks. This will help cook a lot quicker. Then you fill up your your pot with water, add a little bit of salt, just for the extra flavor of the potatoes. I like to actually make it quite a bit saltier. I'm using sea salt. And there you go, you can stick that onto the stove and bring them to a boil. Now that your roast is all cooked down, that is what it looks like. It shrunk quite considerably, but look at all that juices. So now we're going to take that roast out of this crock pot, strain off any clumps, and put that liquid into a pot on the stove to make gravy out of. While your potatoes are boiling their guts out, you're going to want to bring the liquid that you just pulled out of your slow cooker to a boil or a simmer, and then we're going to add a cornstarch slurry to thicken it up. Now at this point you can taste that liquid that came out of the slow cooker to see if the flavor is what you want, if it's salty or not salty enough, or if it's got too much pepper or not enough pepper. You can add some water to it at this point to make more gravy, but that does thin out your flavor quite a bit. At this point, I'm happy with the flavor, so I'm not going to add anything more to it. It will change again once you add your cornstarch to it. To make the slurry that I was referring to thicken up your gravy, you're going to take a cup of water, make sure this is cold, and you're going to add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to it. You do. There you go. Then you add, now if you don't have one of these at home, this is a gravy shaker. A lot of fitness people will use these as well for mixing up protein shakes. The reason being is it's got this handy little thing on the top. Put that in there. The reason I say use cold water, I have made this mistake in the past by using hot water. It'll actually make it pressurize and this top piece will blow off and make a mess of your kitchen. That's something you really don't want. So all you do is you give this a good shake up. And then when that's all good and shook up, looks good, you add that to your boiling pot of liquid out of the bottom of your crock pot. Now, it'll thicken it up as it cooks. If it's not thick enough, you can add more of your slurry, you can add more cornstarch to it. If it's too thin. If it becomes too thick, then you just add more water, and it's a little bit of a balancing act. Now, as you can see, we are at a very nice rolling boil. Now it's going to be completely up to you what the consistency of your gravy that you're looking for. This is way too thin for my liking, so I'm going to go ahead and grab our slurry here. Go ahead and dump some in. Now, not really measuring, you can see right away it slowed down, it stopped boiling, and it right away thickened up. And there we go. That's how quickly that cornstarch slurry is going to thicken up your gravy. Now you got yourself a nice thick gravy ready to go on to the mashed potatoes. And there you go. After all that hard work, you got yourself mashed potatoes, roast beef done in the crock pot. You got the gravy that came from the drippings. So all you got to do, just add a little bit of gravy on top of that. Well, a lot of gravy. Smother it. And there you go. You got yourself dinner. I do got some baby carrots. That is my vegetable. As people have said, I need to have a vegetable. So that's what we're going to get. But how does it taste? Potatoes are super good. That stew meat that was a little bit freezer burnt, you can't even tell. A little bit of gravy. Very good. If anybody has any questions, please let me know, and if you have any recipes that you'd like, give me a shout. I'd love to give them a try. Thanks for tuning in.